Welcome back to the TWSN YouTube channel. Today we're continuing with our team-specific 7-round mock drafts. Obviously, day 2, 31 days to the NFL draft. So we're going to be kicking it off none other with the Houston Texans. Now, the Texans, if you can see here on the mock draft simulator, a boatload of picks, 12 picks. They got a lot, picking this this low for a reason. So it's a good thing that they have all these picks. And I always like it when teams are bad. They know they're bad. They stockpile the picks and they really help kind of turn the team around. Obviously, some of these can be used up, move down, they can get more. But in general, they got a good group of picks. Obviously, we see CJ Stroud off the board here. I mean, I think for a while there was some discussion that Texans might not take a quarterback. But I think when all is said and done, they do. Bryce Young's the pick. Enough said. They need a quarterback. I mean, Davis Mills is fine and all, but at the end of the day, you still need a quarterback. I think that's the perfect time. This is the draft to do it. They're in the situation to do it. It's just simply put, Bryce Young is their guy at 2. Now, again, here at 12, they have a little bit of needs everywhere. They don't have crazy needs besides on the defensive line, I feel like. Have a decent wide receiver room. Obviously, we're probably going to draft one. I really do like their offensive line. Their tight end, I mean, they just signed Dalton Schultz. So they need a lot of little work. So I'm not going to really worry about too much about the needs. I'm just going to really kind of draft best player available for them throughout. I know Christian Gonzalez is here in this mock, but I don't really view that as realistic. So for the sake of Texans fans, I'm not going to go that way. I'm going to go a different route for them. Let me look at the wide receiver room. All of these people do make sense. Jackson Smith and Jigba is very tempting to me. There's some good receiving value down the board. Smith and Jigba is pretty tempting. Jordan Addison is also very tempting. Let's go with Jackson Smith. I know, that ruins the whole Stroud and Jigba connection. I think it's always nice to get your young franchise quarterback a running mate, receiver that he can sit and that he can grow with. And I was debating whether I wanted to try to gamble and wait for Zay Flowers, and he is off the board here. So the downgrade from Jackson Smith and Jigba to Jalen Hyatt, Josh Allen is massive to me. To where some of these other defensive players, the fall off isn't as far. So I think that ended up being the right call here. Now we're gonna probably look in the trenches a little bit more on the defensive side of the ball. We're going to take a look at some edge. I mean, I feel like Nduke Nzama is awesome. Everybody's favorite Northwestern edge is here. Keon White's still here. There's a lot of talent still here on the defensive line. Obviously, at the top of the second, they can go a lot of different ways. You got to figure out which way they want to do it. I think Mazi Smith makes a lot of sense as well. Let's go take the fun guy that really dominated attitude out of Bar A from Northwestern, the double A, as some people like to call him, obviously, since his name is a mouthful, but just an athletic freak, man. The Texans need help defensively up front, period. And they take, a very high upside player there. He's not going to be the last probably edge player we take, defensive lineman we take in general, to be honest with you. But for right now, I feel like that's good value for him. Wouldn't surprise me if he snuck into the back end of the first, but just with that athletic upside. But I think there's a good, safer pick for him. The Texans can kind of really take a little bit more of a slight risk with him when you have all the picks that you have. These interior linemen sort of make sense for Houston. It's not the biggest need in the world, but I do think that, again, you need to protect your franchise quarterback. They have a good offensive line already. I'm not overly pressed about it. But to me, it really could be best player available for them, if we're being honest. And I'm looking at things here, and it really might be. I'm also kind of considering Javonte Dexter here a little bit, another 3-tech kind of guy. I don't know how quickly I want to do that with him there. There's some fun corners here. DJ Turner. I know they have a pretty solid quarterback room. Obviously, Derek Stingley last year, but still need some. Obviously, some of these tight ends are interesting as well. Actually, let's go with the tight end. I like Tucker Kraft a lot. Have Dalton Schultz. They signed on Schultz to 1-year deal. Obviously, he could end up sticking there for the long term, but I doubt it. It's probably more than likely going to be 1-year stint in Houston. Schultz is very good. Tucker Kraft's good. Guys that you can learn and develop with your franchise quarterback. And, a lot of these guys are still here. I'm going to go Luke Weichler here. Play your guard. Not an immediate need for the Texans. He can probably come in and start somewhere in the interior if they wanted him to. Again, just protect your offense, protect your franchise quarterback, and you do that there with Luke Weibler. He's just very good, man. Like, I know, again, might not be the biggest position need. He was very easily the best player on the board there to me, so I wasn't going to hesitate. I thought about him 7 picks before. He opted to go a different direction, but he's still there. Now, these defensive linemen are interesting. I'm gonna go to Kobe Turner. I think Kobe Turner is a little bit underrated through this draft cycle. I think defensive linemen in general always get a little bit slept on, but he's been a very good producer through his time at Wake. He's just another one of those guys that just flies under the radar a little bit. Like I said, defensive linemen don't really get the love that they probably really deserve. But again, the Texans need some help on the interior. I'm probably still gonna add another guy on the defensive line for them. They need bodies. They need some upside, and so far the upside with Turner and AA is really high. So you're looking here. If you're looking at the team needs, which I'm not going off too much, right tackle. I mean a little bit. Then probably maybe get some more versatile interior linemen that I'll look to add here as well, but nothing overly serious. I might consider double dipping again back at receiver, or just literally anything. Brandon Joseph is interesting to me. I know their safety room. They just drafted one last year, but he's just a very good value here as well. I'm also going to take a look back into the wide receiver room and see if there's anybody that kind of intrigues me for them. And there is. Trey Tucker is very good, but I'm going to go Trey Palmer. He gives you that speed in the offense. Now you have Nico Collins, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, John Mechie, Trey Palmer. That's a pretty good core, and I know they brought in some veterans and everything too, but those are for the short term. When you're drafting, when you have all these picks, you're not necessarily just drafting for the short term as much as you want to help win, compete now. But it's not always the case for every team when they're drafting. I'd like to add some cornerback depth for them here. None of these are actually. This looks like a stretch. It's not that big, 188 here, but Carrington Valentine, I think, is one of the most underrated corners throughout the draft cycle. He's a very physical press man corner, and I think that's just at this value. He has a great strength in press man corner. That is something that he does very well. You can play him to his strengths. He doesn't have to be under the pressure of being cornerback one for you. Can develop. You got Stingley, you got King, you got a defensive minded head coach. You can really let him develop. That's a pick down the board that I think can really kind of help turn things around a little quicker than they could have been expecting over. So they still got the need for their tackle, and there's some guys over here that I think can provide multiple positions. And again, smaller school, City So from Eastern Michigan does just that. He's a mauler, man. I don't know necessarily if he's going to stick at tackle, but that's not what the Texans really need necessarily. They just need a versatile offensive lineman, and I think he can do that. You're picking the 200s. You don't necessarily need a day one starter, but I think he is a guy who can come in and be a decent starter in the NFL, and you're getting him way down the board. And with these last 3 picks of the Texans, you're for me, you're looking at upside. Looking at maybe they want to add a specialist, they want to add a kicker or a punter. They wouldn't blame them if they wanted to do that. I'm not gonna mock draft anybody a kicker, but it wouldn't surprise me if you have all these picks for a reason to kind of do something like that. I'm gonna look at running back here a little bit, and I like Dameon Pierce a lot. I'm not saying anything about him, but Evan Hall from Northwestern guys. He's a great pass catching running back. You just added Devin Singletary, I know, but I think Hall can kind of be your cheap third down back, pass catching back to spell Dameon Pierce a little bit without really investing too much in the position. He's not going to really threaten him for touches. But he's just actually just going to be a really good complement to him. So I think that's kind of what you're looking at in this, these rounds of things. E. Winters is going to be big here for me. E. Winters had a very good college football playoffs. I'm glad he didn't get overly hyped throughout the process. Maybe he did a little bit after the game. He's a solid player. He's a big game player, as we saw. So adding that kind of player here, not again, your searching for some upside. That's what you're looking for these late rounds if you are Texans. What they did, and I'm gonna double dip in the edge finally. My guy Lonnie Phelps, did phenomenal at camp. Kansas doesn't produce a lot of NFL players, but he can certainly be one of them. Take a look and read after the Texans. Fun one. Bryce Young with Jackson Smith and Jigba is a really fun pass rusher in Double A. Fantastic. A lot of high upside to these first 3 picks. Then you get into some needs, some depth. Your Kraft, Luke Weipler, great interior player, great help in the trenches, speedster, a good press man corner, and then some solid depth pieces that have clear paths to roles within L. Texans have a lot of picks to work with. I said, you can use some of these picks to trade up the haul that we ended with for the Houston Texans. Next up on the board, we're going to have Arizona Cardinals. Follow along all the TWSN social medias to stay up to date with all NFL draft news. Forward to see you here for the Cardinals.